Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're addressing something I think is uh, maybe the single biggest source of anxiety for anyone who wants to learn.
Oh, yeah, that feeling.
That feeling,
Yeah.
the sheer amount of time you think it takes to start something new. We're talking to you, the student with 8 hours of study, the gym, and still, you really want to learn some Python, maybe some German, maybe marketing.
Well, it's that constant tension, isn't it? You have all this curiosity, but then you hear about the 10,000-hour rule.
Exactly.
And that idea, from Malcolm Gladwell, suggests you need years of effort to get any good. For
Yeah.
someone on a tight schedule, it's paralyzing.
It is. If the price of admission is 10,000 hours, you just never even bother going to the party. So we've been digging into a really powerful counter-argument. It's from Josh Kaufman's work, The First 20 Hours, How to Learn Anything Fast.
It's a great book.
And our mission for this deep dive is to pull out a systematic, practical shortcut from it. A fast start guide that lets you get functionally good at something without needing thousands of hours up front.
Right. We need to see if we can find a way to not just feel productive, but to actually get through that really awkward, demotivating early stage of learning.
That part where everyone quits.
Exactly. The part where most people quit.
Okay, so let's unpack the core philosophy first, because honestly, it's a massive psychological relief. Kaufman's big idea really challenges this assumption that you need a huge time commitment just to start learning something properly.
And the goal isn't mastery. That's not what we're talking about.
Not at all. The goal is just getting over that initial hurdle of feeling completely incompetent.
What's so interesting here is how he defines success. The whole idea is that with just 20 focused hours.
Not 100, not 1,000.
No, just 20. If you do it the right way, you can go from knowing absolutely nothing to being, quite good. It completely shifts the target from being a pro to just being competent.
And that distinction, functional versus mastery, that's the key. I mean, it's a huge psychological benefit because it just removes that inertia, that feeling of being overwhelmed.
For sure.
The source material calls it a wake-up call for anyone who says, I really want to start, but, never does. Kaufman's message is basically, don't wait for time, make it.
He doesn't just talk about this in theory. He grounds it in his own real-world experiments. He wasn't just, watching other people.
He did it himself.
He was applying this 20-hour method to his own goals. When he learned the ukulele, he didn't try to memorize hundreds of chords. That would be overwhelming.
Right.
He focused his 20 hours on just 4 basic chords and the strumming pattern he needed to play, simple songs.
Just enough to make something that sounds like music, something you can enjoy quickly. And that's so critical because it keeps you motivated in that really fragile beginning phase.
It is.
If you get some positive feedback from what you're doing within a month, you're way more likely to stick with it.
Exactly. And he did the same thing with touch typing. The resistance there isn't how hard the letters are. It's that painful, awkward feeling of forcing your fingers to stay on the home row and not look down.
Oh, I remember that.
We all do. But if you only have to commit to 20 focused hours of that awkwardness, the barrier just collapses. It shows the method is really designed to tackle that initial resistance, whether the skill is physical, creative, or, technical.
Which brings us right to the method itself. This is where it stops being just a motivational idea and becomes a real systematic blueprint. So let's get into that methodology. The 4-step roadmap that turns 20 hours of effort into actual useful skill.
And the book is really firm on this. You have to follow these 4 steps rigorously if you want to get the return on those 20 hours.
Okay, step 1 is a big one. Break the skill into small parts. Before you even start practicing, you have to figure out what the minimum viable components are.
Right.
So if you're starting German, that means you ignore all the complex grammar cases for now. You just focus on, say, the 50 most important verbs and basic sentence structures.
And if you apply that to something like Python, you're not starting with object-oriented programming or, complex web frameworks. You're just focusing on understanding data types, variables, maybe some input-output, and a couple of basic loops. That deconstruction stops you from being paralyzed by how huge the whole subject is.
Okay, then step 2. You have to learn only the necessary things. This is the 80-20 principle, but on steroids. You're looking for that critical 20% of knowledge that lets you do the basic skill 80% of the time.
The source is really insistent here. You just need enough information so you can self-correct while you practice, but not so much that you spend all 20 hours just reading about it.
The classic trap.
A huge trap. For marketing, that 20% might just be understanding the ADA model, a lead funnel, and the 4 Ps. You ignore all the complex stuff for now.
That's a powerful filter. But let's pause for a second, because a big question you might have is about when to start the clock. We've got the 20 hours, but what about the setup time? Buying the ukulele, installing Python on your computer.
That's a really good point. The book kind of implies that setup time is part of step 2. Learning what you need includes learning how to get and use your tools. But the 20 hours itself, that's dedicated, focused practice time. So you want to make that setup as frictionless as possible, which actually leads right into step 3.
Which is to remove distractions.
Yes.
This one is just non-negotiable for anyone who thinks they can multitask their way into a new skill. The whole idea is to eliminate anything that breaks your focus.
And this is really what separates success from failure. You can't just passively absorb a skill. You need absolute total focus for those 20 hours.
So for a student juggling classes, that means carving out a specific, uninterrupted 45-minute block every day.
Exactly. No phone, no social media, no music that grabs your attention. You have to create a bubble where that practice time is sacred.
And finally, that brings us to step 4, focused practice. And this isn't just mindless repetition, is it?
Not at all. It's about deliberate practice of those small, necessary parts you already identified. And the source really emphasizes getting immediate feedback. If you're learning German words, you don't just read a list. You test yourself with flashcards or an app, and you correct your mistakes instantly.
So you're not just repeating the things you already know.
Right. You avoid that trap. If you mastered Python variables in hour 3, then hour 4 needs to be spent on something new, like basic conditional statements. You have to keep pushing.
So looking at all 4 of those steps, which one do you think is the hardest for a busy learner, like the one we're talking to actually pull off?
I would argue it's step 3, the focus part. The initial excitement gets you through deconstructing the skill and learning the basics, but finding 20 truly dedicated, focused hours, that's the real take.
Especially when your motivation dips, right?
Yeah.
Around hour 10 or 12.
Exactly. That's the test of commitment. If your effort is half-hearted, or if you're constantly getting interrupted by texts and notifications, the whole method it falls apart.
Which brings us to a needed reality check. We've said this is great for getting started, but where does the source draw the line? I mean, what does the 20-hour rule not give you?
This is the most important clarification. Let's be crystal clear on this. The 20-hour method delivers a basic level. That's it.
Not mastery.
Not mastery, not expertise, not a professional level skill you can charge money for. You'll be competent at the basics, but you won't be ready to, take a high-stakes exam or build a client's website.
Okay, so if you spent 20 hours on web programming, you could probably build a simple static web page. You'd get the basic structure of HTML and CSS.
Yes.
But you'd be nowhere near designing, say, a secure backend system. That takes hundreds of hours of more practice and experience.
Precisely. To get to true expertise, you have to integrate knowledge from different areas, master all the nuance, and just put in a massive amount of time. And that is way beyond the scope of this initial framework.
So that raises a key question. Are there certain skills where 20 hours is it's not enough, even for a functional start?
The book does warn that the method is less effective for super complex skills, things where even the foundation requires a ton of multidisciplinary knowledge.
Like what?
Well, think about true high-level fluency in a language like German, or serious technical skills like specialized engineering. You can get a start, for sure, but 20 hours isn't enough to feel truly competent in those really demanding fields.
So it sounds like the book is a great manual for starting the engine, but it doesn't actually navigate the highway for you.
That's a perfect way to put it. And, just as a quick critique of the source itself, the review we looked at mentioned that some of the later chapters in Kaufman's book, the ones about his personal stories, felt a bit like filler. The real gold, the most actionable stuff, is right at the beginning in those chapters that detail the 4-step method.
That's really helpful for our listener. Focus on those mechanical steps. That's where the real value is.
Absolutely. It saves you time, which is the whole point.
So let's bring it all back. What does this practically mean for you, the listener, who's balancing intense study, the gym, and all these interests? Why is this deep dive on the 20-hour rule so useful for your specific challenges?
It's useful because your schedule is so demanding. You're studying 8 hours a day. You can't afford to jump into some 100-hour experiment that might just fail.
You don't have the bandwidth.
You don't. The 20-hour method lets you find these little pockets of time, maybe 4 30-minute blocks a week, to start something new without blowing up your main commitments to school and fitness.
And it really helps with that multi-interest problem. When you're curious about Python and German and marketing all at once, It's so easy to spread your energy too thin and get nowhere with any of them.
The book offers a great solution to that. It teaches you to focus intensely on one skill at a time. Isolate one thing for 20 focused hours, get functionally good at it, and then you can kind of park it
And feel good about it.
and feel good about it. Then you can move on to the next thing. It stops you from starting 2 or 3 things and then dropping them all halfway through.
Okay, let's apply it directly. If you commit 20 focused hours to Python, you use those rules, you deconstruct it, you focus on reading variables, writing simple functions, running short scripts. After 20 hours, you can actually automate some small, repetitive task for your studies.
And for German, those 20 hours are all about getting to basic conversational competence. That means using step 3, no distractions, for intense practice on verb conjugations and maybe 50 key phrases.
So you can introduce yourself and ask for directions.
Right. You're not fluent, but you're functional. You can have a simple conversation.
What about marketing?
For marketing, 20 hours could easily cover the core theories. Segmentation, targeting, positioning. It's enough to let you be productive in a class discussion or start analyzing a basic ad campaign. It gives you immediate relevance.
The real value here sounds like confidence.
That's it. The method gives you permission to be a beginner, but a competent beginner, someone who knows the basics and has something useful to say. And that gets rid of that crippling fear of looking stupid when you start something new.
So, to sum it all up, the source material really positions the first 20 hours as a foundational announcement, a wake-up call. It's the perfect blueprint for getting off the couch and onto the starting line.
And if we zoom out to the bigger picture, those 20 hours are just the first necessary burst of energy. The real test is what you do after that. If you're actually serious about mastering coding or a language, that initial excitement is just that. It's initial.
The knowledge we've pulled out here gives you the tactical plan to start small and start fast.
But the source material is very clear about this. The real work comes from commitment, from continuous practice, and from sustained experience after those first 20 hours are done. So here's a final thought for you to chew on. When you start your next 20-hour skill, the challenge isn't really finding the time to begin. The real challenge is figuring out what sustainable system, the daily habit, the mentor, the feedback loop is going to carry you from quite good all the way to